According to Business Insider, Palantir is back in the spotlight with a fresh 9-point AI manifesto that goes straight at some of the hottest debates in artificial intelligence, data control, model ownership, and what it calls the dangers of tokenmaxxing. Today we're going to unpack what this actually means for Palantir as a business, for the broader AI ecosystem, and most importantly, for investors who follow the stock. According to Business Insider, this manifesto was posted on X and centers on the idea of AI sovereignty. In simple terms, Palantir is telling institutions, keep your data, your models, and your knowledge in-house, and do not hand the keys to outside AI labs that might eventually compete with you. For investors, this is more than just philosophy. It's Palantir drawing a sharp line between its approach and the hyperscaler or frontier lab model and trying to position itself as the trusted, sovereign AI operating system for governments and enterprises. According to Business Insider News, the manifesto opens by saying that an institution's AI sovereignty dictates its future. Sovereignty here is framed as the precondition for choice. If a company or a government hands over too much of its data and model control to third parties, it is effectively outsourcing its future strategic options. From an investor's perspective, this plays straight into Palantir's long-term sales pitch. We help you build AI on top of your own data, inside your own environment, with your own guardrails. That framing is especially powerful when selling into defense, intelligence, and regulated industries, where control and auditability are not optional. Business Insider mentions that the second key message is about data retention as a kind of institutional treasure. Palantir argues that your ability to win depends on recognizing and exploiting your unique edge, which is encoded in your proprietary data. Over time, compounding that data, generating new insights, and folding those insights back into your systems is how you sustain advantage. If you transfer that data to others, you're handing them your past playbook and the raw material for your future strategies. For investors, that strongly reinforces why Palantir is so focused on being the platform that sits directly on top of a customer's most sensitive data rather than owning that data itself. According to Business Insider, the manifesto then takes a direct shot at what it calls tokenmaxxing, effectively, the mindset of spending heavily on API calls and model usage as a proxy for real progress. Palantir warns that this habit hijacks an organization's value orientation, encourages disposable scripts rather than robust software, and gives leaders an addictive feeling of false momentum. The underlying claim is that the current era of just throwing money at frontier models does not necessarily create durable value, especially if you are not building reusable systems and proprietary capability on top. For Palantir investors, this is aimed at two things. First, it is trying to differentiate Palantir from vendors who mainly sell access to large models by the token or by the API call. Palantir is arguing that real value comes from end-to-end operational systems, not just model usage metrics. Second, it's a subtle macro comment: some AI spending may prove wasteful or faddish. If and when enterprises start pulling back from open-ended API bills and look for ROI-driven AI projects, Palantir wants to be the platform that survives the hype cycle. According to Business Insider News, Palantir goes on to say that controlling your weights is controlling your fate. In machine learning terms, weights are the learned parameters of models. Palantir argues that these weights become a distilled representation of an institution's knowledge and processes. If those weights are controlled by an external provider, then you risk transferring the alpha of your business to someone else. In practice, this is a strong argument for private, customer-specific models and for architectures where the customer can own or at least tightly govern the models trained on their data. From an equity perspective, this aligns with Palantir's product direction, especially its Foundry and AIP offerings. The company has been leaning into AI platforms inside your perimeter, often deployed in sensitive environments. If governments and large enterprises internalize this control your weights message, spending could shift away from pure public cloud, multi-tenant foundation models toward systems that embed foundation models but keep fine-tuned or domain-specific models and weights in customer control. That scenario would structurally favor companies like Palantir that already specialize in on-premise or tightly controlled deployments. Business Insider mentions another important claim. Palantir says there is no contradiction between sovereignty and alpha. In other words, locking down your data and your models does not mean you sacrifice innovation or performance, as long as your architecture is designed to preserve sovereignty while also harnessing your tribal knowledge. For long-term holders of Palantir stock, this is Palantir articulating its competitive moat. It wants to be the company that gives you both high performance and strict control, which is a combination that traditional SaaS or public-only AI providers do not always offer. According to Business Insider, the manifesto then moves into the political dimension. Palantir warns that politicizing technical questions around sovereignty is exactly what your adversary wants. It calls this techno-politicization, arguing that it produces decisions that look like they reduce dependency but actually limit real agency, especially in Western military contexts. This is a crucial nuance for defense investors. Palantir is effectively telling Western governments that symbolic moves to appear independent or sovereign, if they are not grounded in rigorous technical judgment, may end up weakening battlefield effectiveness. For Palantir shareholders, this is part of the larger geopolitical backdrop. The company has been explicit about siding with Western democracies and has leaned into national security use cases. By framing AI sovereignty as not just a technical but a strategic and even battlefield issue, Palantir is positioning its technology as part of the West's deterrence and resilience. That narrative can resonate in periods of heightened geopolitical tension, and historically, that environment has often supported Palantir's government revenue growth. According to Business Insider News, Palantir also emphasizes that real expertise is existential. Decisions should be driven by those closest to the problems, not by those who are merely the most politically persuasive or charismatic. In practical terms, this is a critique of decision-making processes where AI strategy is set by high-level politics, procurement dynamics, or internal fiefdoms, rather than by engineers, operators, and analysts who actually understand the systems. For investors, this message is directed at Palantir's core customers, militaries, intelligence agencies, and large enterprises, where bureaucratic and political pressures can distort technology adoption. Palantir is advocating for an evidence-driven procurement culture, which plays to its strength in pilot programs and operational deployments. When decisions are made on measurable impact rather than lobbying or political narratives, vendors that can deliver real outcomes, better targeting, lower fraud, higher throughput, improved logistics tend to win. Palantir is arguing, implicitly, that it is one of those vendors. Business Insider mentions that the manifesto urges institutions to learn from organizations that are genuinely winning or consistently delivering, especially those facing existential threats. In environments where failure is not an option, such as the battlefield or critical infrastructure, there is no room for choosing vendors or architectures based on ideological preferences. The underlying investor angle is that Palantir's strongest references often come from exactly these settings: active military theaters, counterterrorism, large-scale government analytics, and high-stakes commercial operations. In the manifesto, Palantir closes by arguing that you should only listen to institutions, countries, and people with a proven track record of being right. Judging technology based on who you like, rather than on their demonstrated correctness over time, is deeply misguided. This is also a direct continuation of statements CEO Alex Karp has made publicly. According to Business Insider, earlier in June he criticized frontier AI companies on CNBC, saying they underestimate how unlikable they are and that their products often don't work as customers expect. For the stock market audience, this matters on several levels. First, it reinforces Palantir's attempt to differentiate itself from the major AI labs and cloud providers. By painting those labs as token sellers with misaligned incentives, Palantir is inviting large customers to rethink their dependence on single-provider AI stacks. If that message lands, Palantir could benefit from a shift toward multi-model, sovereign architectures where it orchestrates and secures a blend of open-source and proprietary models on behalf of the customer. Second, the heavy emphasis on sovereignty and control matches current regulatory and political currents. Data localization, AI governance, auditability, and model transparency are all moving to the forefront, especially in Europe and across allied nations. As rules tighten, architectures that keep data and sensitive weights under national or institutional control could enjoy regulatory tailwinds. Palantir's manifesto effectively positions the company as an early evangelist of these principles, which could help it secure long-term contracts tied to compliance and security. Third, Palantir is clearly pushing back against the valuation narrative that centers on pure model providers. Many investor discussions in AI have focused on which foundation model or frontier lab will dominate. Palantir's message is that durable value will accrue to integrators and operating system-like platforms that sit between raw models and real-world operations. For shareholders, this is Palantir staking out its position as the AI operating layer for mission-critical work, not as yet another model vendor. Fourth, the critique of tokenmaxxing has implications for AI spending cycles. If AI budgets currently prioritize experimentation, prototypes, and high-volume API usage, that may look like strong top-line growth for some providers but could be vulnerable when CFOs start to demand proof of value. Palantir is betting that the next phase of AI spending will prioritize deployed, integrated systems with measurable ROI, such as optimized supply chains, automated workflows, and intelligence fusion. In that scenario, Palantir's long sales cycles and deep integrations are more of a feature than a bug. Fifth, there is branding and reputational risk. By attacking large AI labs and highlighting how unlikable they may be, Palantir is also implicitly challenging powerful partners and potential collaborators. Some investors might worry that this rhetoric could limit Palantir's ability to form alliances or to fully leverage top-tier models from those same labs. On the other hand, it could also attract customers who share Palantir's skepticism of centralized AI power and who want a counterweight inside their own infrastructure. From a competitive landscape standpoint, this manifesto can be read as Palantir trying to harden its moat while the rest of the AI world races to scale. Cloud hyperscalers focus on compute and generalized models. Frontier labs focus on pushing capability boundaries. Traditional software vendors embed AI features into existing products. Palantir is carving out the niche of sovereign AI orchestrator, the company that comes in, integrates your data, sets up your decision workflows, and ensures your models remain under your control. For long-term investors, the key questions become: how much will governments and large enterprises truly prioritize sovereignty and control when making AI investments, especially in the face of cost and convenience pressures from large cloud providers? How far will regulators go in codifying data and model sovereignty into hard requirements that align with Palantir's architecture? Will the tokenmaxxing critique prove prescient, leading to a shakeout among AI vendors that rely heavily on raw usage metrics without deep integration? Can Palantir translate this manifesto into concrete product differentiation, pricing power, and longer-term contracts? Palantir's history provides some hints. The company has already proven its ability to land and expand within highly sensitive institutions, especially in the US and allied defense sectors. It has also built a track record of adapting its software platforms Gotham, Foundry, and now AIP to evolving data and AI paradigms. This manifesto, then, should be viewed as both a marketing document and a directional indicator of where Palantir thinks the battle for AI profits will be fought, not on raw model performance alone, but on governance, integration, and control. For more growth-oriented shareholders, this could be encouraging. If Palantir can remain the go-to partner for sovereign AI deployments, particularly across NATO, Europe, and key commercial verticals like healthcare, manufacturing, and finance, it stands to capture a durable, high-margin niche. The language of sovereignty tends to resonate in boardrooms that are already anxious about overdependence on a small number of tech giants. For more cautious investors, it's important to remember that this is still a narrative. The stock's future performance will depend on contract wins, revenue growth, margins, and execution. Manifestos can raise expectations, but they must be backed by tangible results, more customers choosing Palantir's architecture over easier, cheaper, or more fashionable options. According to Business Insider, Alex Karp has been openly critical of the frontier AI labs, saying their products don't work as customers expect. That sentiment echoes what many enterprises quietly feel. Generative AI demos can be spectacular, but operationalizing them is hard. Palantir wants to own that operational layer, and this manifesto is its way of telling investors and customers that it is aligned with long-term control, resilience, and real-world impact. As always, this episode is for informational purposes and does not constitute investment advice. Before making any investment decisions related to Palantir or any other company, do your own research and consider your individual risk profile. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Palantir's AI Sovereignty Manifesto and its implications for investors, consider subscribing so you don't miss future episodes.